Good evening. Welcome to BCN's News Bulletin for this Thursday evening. Yesterday, a majority of the members of the Niue Assembly walked out of a special meeting held to discuss and vote on a motion of no confidence that was submitted to the House last week. Although the Premier is currently overseas, the remainder of members of the Assembly were present to consider the motion presented by Common Role Member Honourable Tungia Sianiholo. As Honourable Sianiholo was about to reveal the grounds for the motion that was lodged, he was stopped while the member for Avasele, Honourable Billy Talangi, put forward another motion for the vote of no confidence to proceed with the voting and bypass the discussions, quoting a section from 126 from the standing orders to support this motion. After some deliberation, the Speaker, Honourable Ahiva Levy, declined that motion and used his discretion in favour of continuing discussions for the original motion. Acting Premier Honourable Pokotosi Pili then informed the Speaker that they would not remain in the meeting due to that decision, and 11 members of Parliament walked out of the meeting. With only 8 members remaining, the meeting could not continue. Honourable Tungia Sianiholo voiced his disappointment in the manner the members walked out and said that they should remember their sworn oaths as elected members of the House to represent their constituents. But an interesting turn of events had the Niue Assembly recommenced today. Before the initial discussion, there was some consideration whether to proceed with the debate. The member for Avasele, Honourable Billy Talangi, reiterated a motion put forward yesterday, but the Speaker of the Assembly stood by his decision to give the opportunity for the motion to be presented for discussion and then voting. A number of issues were raised by those who spoke in favour of the motion, reflected on a number of concerns, such as the conditions of roads, telephones, power cables, the asbestos project and incomplete projects. Members who supported the government's projects voiced that the discussions did not raise any new issues, as these have been shown in previous meetings, and was not a balanced representation of the work that government has done. According to representatives from within Cabinet, they highlighted that the government is working very hard to get work done, and that is not an easy task. Following views and discussions on the motion, the matter was put to the vote, with 7 for the motion and 12 against the motion. The motion for the vote of no confidence in Cabinet was defeated. The new land commissioners to the Niue High Court have been sworn in today in a special ceremony held at the Niue Public Service Building. The appointments made by Cabinet will have land commissioners serve for a term of 5 years. Those who took their oaths included Taumalua Jackson, Maihetoe Hekau, Rumatic Alapaki, Robin Hekau, Hale Ikitule, Lilivika Liu Maihetau, Rupina Marcy, and Sokia Tukuitonga. According to a justice representative, there were 8 commissioners sworn in today, 7 specifically for the land division of the Niue High Courts and 1 commissioner for the civil and criminal courts. There are 2 commissioners within this group that have been appointed on a temporary basis for 1 year. Upon taking their oath, the commissioners accepted their appointment. They were also presented with a Land Commissioners Bench Book by Honourable Kupa Mangtungia and the Judicial Code of Conduct by the Acting Registrar to guide their work for the next 5 years. Local and international communications were affected yesterday as Telecom's telecommunication network was down. The problem was detected at around 2 in the afternoon, with telephones and the G1 mailing network out of order for a few hours. Meanwhile, Telecom technicians and electricians worked extra hard late into the afternoon to restore much-needed services. Telecom Director Tutuli Hackers noted that due to the extent of the damage to critical communication equipment, the department will be undergoing some planned network outages to bring other equipment back online. Mr. Hacker says the planned outages will be carried out at such times that will have minimum impact on the customer's communications requirements. Work to get critical equipment back online continued today with an announcement that the MS Outlook email client services are now restored. Towards the end of last year, the Niue cricket team led by the president of the Niue Cricket Association, Mr. Charlie Tauvaka, left Niue to challenge the Niue New Zealand team for the Palanuku Shield. This is the second round of competition, with the first round held in Niue in 2011. The president of the Niue Kirikiki Association, Charlie Tovaka, said Niue team, even though he did not get the numbers and Niue's top players to travel with his team, he was more than happy with the players and numbers that he got in the end. In total, there was a team of 48 players, 25 in the men's team and 23 in the women's team. Were not enough to make up the teams to reach the required number of 30 players per team as requested by the Niue New Zealand team, so the numbers were made up of Niue New Zealand players. The first game held at the Avondale Racecourse between Niue and New Zealand's President's team. That game was won by the Niue New Zealand President's team 183 to 166 for Niue. The second game with Makefu was held at Griffin Park in Linfield. Makefu won that game 151 points to Niue's 140. Their third game was the first test against the Niue New Zealand team at Mountford Park in Manurewa. The Niue New Zealand team won this first test with 183 points to Niue's 93. Their fourth game was against Mutalo at Eskdale Park in Avondale. Niue team had their first win against Mutalo with a very close score of 167 points to Mutalo's 160. The second test against the New Zealand team, that was won by the Niue New Zealand team with 230 points and only 173 points to Niue. As for the women's cricket team, they played 5 games, and even though there were a few controversial decisions, the Niue women's team won the second test against Niue New Zealand's team. They lost the first test and also the games against Makefu, Mutalo and the extra game against the New Zealand team. The overall winner for the Palanuku Shield for 2013 to 2014 for the men's team went to the Niue New Zealand team, and the Niue women's team won the Women's Palanuku Shield 2013 to 2014 because they had a win each in the 2 tests. Niue women's cricket team get to keep the shield because they were the holder from the first round competition in 2011. Building a Niue canoe is not easy, and if you don't have the right skills and tools to do it, a current project that is an initiative of the Awaseli Youth Fitness Group, led by Brendan Tawasi and Trevor Siakia, supported by the traditional canoe shapers like Billy Talangi and Manisila Mokale. Brendan Tawasi said the initiative came up at one of their very early meetings, and only last year they decided, after a meeting with the village, to proceed with the project at the beginning of this year. According to Brendan Tawasi, they have already got 45 names of Awaseli people registered for a canoe under this project. 38 trees have been felled and 12 are already shaped and ready to be moved to the Leolo workshop, where the final work is done in the making of the canoe. Brendan Tawasi acknowledged the support from the Awaseli youth and also praised the specialized skills in canoe shaping offered by Billy Talangi and Manisila Mokale. This project is funded mainly by the Awaseli Youth Fitness Group, but they are looking for further fundings to supply paste, glue and other binding materials needed as a finishing product from New Zealand. The project continues every Saturday as they attend to the shaping of the rest of the felled trees in several bush locations, ready to be transported to their Leolo workshop. And that concludes our news bulletin for this Thursday evening. We do hope that you have a great weekend ahead.